Here's a question that will change your life. What kind of person are you when nobody else is around? When there's no boss watching, no family counting on you, no friends to impress. When it's just you and your choices. That's where your real character lives. The real test of who you are doesn't happen when everyone is watching. It doesn't happen when your boss is looking over your shoulder, when your family is cheering you on, or when your friends are counting on you. The real test of character happens at 6 a.m. when your alarm goes off and nobody cares if you hit the snooze button. It happens when you're alone with a choice between what's easy and what's right. It happens when no one will ever know the difference. Most people live their lives backwards. They put on a show for others while neglecting the person they see in the mirror every morning. They'll work hard when the boss is around, but slack off the moment he leaves. They'll eat healthy when dining with health-conscious friends, but raid the refrigerator at midnight when nobody's looking. They'll be kind and generous in public, but harsh and selfish in private. This is not the way to build a life worth living. You see, there are two versions of every person. There's the public you and the private you. The public you is the one that shows up to meetings on time, says the right things, wears the right clothes, and plays the part that's expected. But the private you, that's where the real magic happens, or the real tragedy unfolds. The private you is who you are when the curtain falls, when the lights go down, when the audience goes home. I learned this lesson the hard way. When I was 25 years old, I was working for a company, and my supervisor had to leave town for 2 weeks. Before he left, he gave me a list of tasks that needed to be completed while he was gone. Some were important, some were routine, and some were just plain boring. The first few days, I worked diligently. I told myself I was being responsible, that I was proving myself worthy of trust. But as the days went on, something interesting happened. I started to rationalize. I thought, well, he won't be back for another week. I can finish this tomorrow. Then tomorrow became the next day. And the next day became next week. By the time my supervisor returned, I had completed maybe half of what I had promised to do. When he asked about the unfinished work, I had a dozen excuses ready. The weather was bad. I got sick. Unexpected things came up. He listened patiently, then said something that changed my life. He said, "Jim, I didn't leave you that work to test your ability. I already knew you could do it. I left you that work to test your character. And now I know what I need to know." That conversation stung, but it taught me one of the most valuable lessons of my life. Who you are when no one is watching is who you really are. The truth is, we all have moments when we think nobody will know. We think we can cut corners, take shortcuts, or make exceptions just this once. But here's what I've learned after all these years. Somebody always knows. You know. And that's the only person whose opinion of you truly matters in the long run. Think about it this way. Your life is like a bank account, and every action you take is either a deposit or a withdrawal. When you do the right thing in private, when you keep your word to yourself, when you follow through even when it's inconvenient, you're making deposits, you're building character capital. But when you compromise your standards because no one will know, when you take the easy way out, when you break promises to yourself, you're making withdrawal. And just like a bank account, if you make too many withdrawals without enough deposits, you'll find yourself bankrupt where it matters most. The small choices you make when nobody's watching are the building blocks of your destiny. That decision to get up when the alarm rings instead of hitting snooze, that's building discipline. That choice to read something valuable instead of watching mindless television, that's building your mind. That moment when you choose to eat something healthy instead of something convenient, that's building your body. That instant when you choose to be kind to someone who can't do anything for you, that's building your character. Let me share something with you about human nature. We're all tempted to take the easy road when we think we can get away with it. It's natural, it's normal, but it's also the path to mediocrity. The difference between successful people and everyone else isn't talent, luck, or opportunity. It's what they do when no one else is around. I know a man who became one of the most successful entrepreneurs in his city. People would always ask him what his secret was. They wanted to know about his business strategies, his networking techniques, his investment philosophy. But when I got to know him well, I learned his real secret. Every morning for 30 years, he got up at 5 a.m. and spent 2 hours working on himself, reading, planning, exercising. Nobody made him do it. Nobody checked up on him. Nobody would have known if he had slept in. But he did it anyway, every single day, because he understood that the person he became in those private morning hours would determine the success he achieved in his public working hours. That's the power of private discipline. It's not glamorous. It's not exciting. Nobody gives you a medal for it. But it's the foundation upon which everything worthwhile is built. Now let me tell you why most people struggle with this. It's because they're looking for external motivation instead of internal standards. They need someone else to push them, encourage them, hold them accountable. But what happens when that external force disappears? What happens when the coach isn't there? When the deadline isn't looming? When the consequences aren't immediate? That's when you find out what you're really made of. That's when you discover whether you've built your life on a foundation of internal strength or external pressure. And here's the thing about external pressure. It's temporary. It comes and goes. But internal standards, once established, become part of who you are. They travel with you wherever you go. They work at midnight when you're tired. They work on weekends when you'd rather relax. They work when you're discouraged, when you're frustrated, when you don't feel like it. Building internal standards starts with making a decision about who you want to become. Not what you want to have, not what you want to achieve, but who you want to be. Do you want to be someone who can be trusted? Then start by being trustworthy when it doesn't matter. Do you want to be known for excellence? Then start doing excellent work when nobody will notice. Do you want to be respected? Then start by respecting yourself enough to keep the promises you make to yourself. Here's something most people don't understand about internal standards. They're not just rules you follow, they're the foundation of your identity. When you consistently act according to your values in private, those values become part of who you are at your core. It's like building muscle. Every time you lift a weight, you're not just completing an exercise, you're becoming a stronger person. Every time you choose discipline over convenience in private, you're not just completing a task, you're becoming a more disciplined person. This is why successful people often seem to have a natural ease about doing difficult things. It's not that they're naturally more motivated or have more willpower. It's that they've trained themselves in private to the point where discipline feels normal. They've made so many good choices when nobody was watching that making good choices has become their default setting. Think about a professional athlete. When they step onto the field during a game, they don't have to think about their fundamentals. They don't have to remind themselves how to run or throw or catch. Those skills have become automatic because they've practiced them thousands of times when no one was watching. The same principle applies to character. When you practice integrity, honesty, and discipline in private, they become automatic in public. The beautiful thing about developing private discipline is that it creates a positive cycle. The more you do the right thing when no one is watching, the easier it becomes to do the right thing when everyone is watching. The more you keep promises to yourself, the more you trust yourself to keep promises to others. The more you maintain your standards in private, the more natural it becomes to maintain them in public. But it works the other way too. Every time you compromise your standards in private, you make it easier to compromise them in public. Every time you make an exception for yourself, you weaken your resolve for the next time. Every time you choose convenience over character when nobody's looking, you're training yourself to choose convenience over character when everyone's looking. I want you to think about your daily routine. What do you do when you first wake up? How do you spend your free time? What do you think about when your mind isn't occupied with work or other responsibilities? These are the moments that shape your character. These are the times when you're either building yourself up or tearing yourself down. Think about your mental development. When you have quiet moments, do you feed your mind with something valuable or something trivial? When you're driving alone, are you listening to something that challenges you to grow or something that simply passes the time? When you could be learning something new, are you choosing growth or comfort? Your mind is either expanding or contracting. and these private choices determine which direction it goes. Consider your relationships. How do you speak about people when they're not around? How do you treat people who can't do anything for you? When someone makes a mistake and no one would know if you held it against them, what do you choose? The character you develop in private is the character you'll display in your relationship. The key to developing private discipline is understanding that you are always in relationship with yourself. You can't escape yourself. You can't hide from yourself. You can't lie to yourself for very long without consequences. The quality of your relationship with yourself determines the quality of every other relationship in your life. When you consistently do the right thing in private, something wonderful happens. You start to like yourself. You start to respect yourself. You start to trust yourself. And when you genuinely like, respect, and trust yourself, other people naturally feel drawn to you. They sense something different about you. They notice your authenticity, your integrity, your strength of character. People can always tell the difference between someone who's performing and someone who's genuine. They might not be able to put their finger on exactly what it is, but they can feel it. When you've developed the habit of doing right when no one is watching, it shows up in everything you do. There's a consistency, a reliability, a trustworthiness that can't be faked. Now here's where it gets practical. Building this kind of discipline requires specific strategies, concrete actions you can take starting today. First, start small. Don't try to transform your entire life overnight. Pick one area where you want to develop better habits. Maybe it's getting up 15 minutes earlier. Maybe it's reading for 10 minutes before bed. Maybe it's doing 10 push-ups every morning. The key is to choose something small enough that you can do it consistently even when you don't feel like it. The power of starting small cannot be overstated. When you succeed at something small every day, you build what I call success momentum. Your brain starts to believe that you're the kind of person who follows through on commitments. This belief becomes incredibly powerful because it makes the next commitment easier to keep. You start thinking, well, I kept my promise yesterday, so of course I'll keep it today too. Second, create systems, not just goals. Goals are what you want to achieve, but systems are what you do every day to achieve them. If your goal is to be healthier, your system might be to prepare healthy meals on Sunday for the entire week. If your goal is to be more knowledgeable, your system might be to read for 20 minutes first thing every morning. Systems make discipline automatic instead of dependent on willpower. Here's something fascinating about systems. Once they're established, they require less mental energy to maintain than you might think. It's like brushing your teeth. You don't have to motivate yourself to brush your teeth every morning. You don't have to make a decision about whether to do it or not. It's just part of your routine. That's what a good system does for any area of your life. Third, keep track of your private commitments just as seriously as you keep track of your public commitments. Write them down. Check them off. Hold yourself accountable. Most people are more careful about being on time for a meeting with someone else than they are about keeping promises to themselves. But your relationship with yourself is the most important relationship you have. I recommend keeping what I call a private victory journal. Every day, write down one thing you did that nobody else knew about or cared about, but that moved you forward. Maybe you chose to read instead of watch television. Maybe you organized your workspace. Maybe you called someone you'd been meaning to call. These small private victories add up to massive changes over time. Fourth, understand that discipline is like a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it gets. Every time you choose discipline over comfort, you're strengthening your ability to make that choice again. Every time you follow through on a commitment to yourself, you're building evidence that you can be trusted. Start with small acts of discipline and gradually increase the challenge. This is why I always tell people to celebrate their private victories, not with others necessarily, but with yourself. Acknowledge when you've done something difficult that nobody else will ever know about. Pat yourself on the back. Feel good about it. This positive reinforcement helps build the habit of discipline. Fifth, remember that discipline in one area of life tends to spill over into other areas. When you develop the habit of exercising regularly, you'll often find that you eat better too. When you develop the habit of reading consistently, you'll often find that you manage your time better. When you develop the habit of keeping your living space organized, you'll often find that your thinking becomes more organized too. This spillover effect happens because discipline is fundamentally about making conscious choices instead of defaulting to whatever's easiest. When you practice making conscious choices in one area, you naturally start making conscious choices in other areas too. Sixth, prepare for the times when you won't feel like being disciplined. Because there will be those times. You'll be tired, stressed, discouraged, or just plain lazy. This is when having predetermined responses becomes crucial. Decide in advance what you'll do when you don't feel like doing what you know you should do. For example, if your commitment is to exercise every morning, decide what you'll do on the days when you wake up tired and unmotivated. Maybe your rule is that on those days, you'll do just 5 minutes instead of 30, but you'll still do something. This keeps the habit alive even when your energy is low. Seventh, surround yourself with reminders of your private commitments. This doesn't mean telling everyone about them, but it does mean creating an environment that supports your discipline. If you want to read more, keep books visible around your home. If you want to eat healthier, stock your kitchen with healthy foods and remove the unhealthy ones. Make the disciplined choice the easy choice whenever possible. The transformation that happens when you truly embrace private discipline is remarkable. You stop needing external validation to feel good about yourself. You stop depending on other people's energy to motivate you. You stop making excuses because you know that excuses only work on other people, never on yourself. You start waking up with energy because you know you've been taking care of yourself. You start facing challenges with confidence because you know you've been building strength in private. You start attracting opportunities because people sense your reliability and character. You start sleeping well at night because you know you've done your best with the day you were given. This transformation doesn't happen overnight, but when it does happen, it's unmistakable. There's a quiet confidence that develops in people who have learned to be disciplined when no one is watching. It's not arrogance or boastfulness. It's the deep satisfaction that comes from knowing you can count on yourself. It's the peace that comes from living in alignment with your values. I've watched this transformation in countless people over the years. There's always a moment when something shifts. They stop talking about what they're going to do and start quietly doing it. They stop looking for motivation from others and start generating it from within. They stop waiting for the perfect circumstances and start working with whatever circumstances they have. When you develop this kind of internal discipline, something interesting happens in your relationships. People start to trust you more, even though they might not be able to explain why. It's because consistency in private creates consistency in public. When you're reliable with yourself, you become reliable with others. When you keep promises to yourself, keeping promises to others becomes natural. Your family notices it first. Your spouse sees that you follow through on the little things without being reminded. Your children see that you do what you say you're going to do. Your parents see that you've become someone they can depend on. These changes in your closest relationships ripple out into every other area of your life. At work, colleagues begin to see you differently. They notice that your work is consistently good. Not just when there's a deadline or when the boss is watching. They see that you take pride in what you do regardless of who gets the credit. They observe that you're the same person in meetings as you are in casual conversations. This consistency builds trust and respect in ways that no amount of networking or political maneuvering ever could. But perhaps most importantly, you start to understand that success isn't something that happens to you, it's something that happens through you. It's not about getting lucky or finding the right opportunity or having the right connections. It's about becoming the right person. And you become the right person through the choices you make when no one else is around. This is why some people seem to attract success effortlessly, while others struggle despite having talent and opportunity. The difference isn't in their circumstances, it's in their character. The person who has developed strong private discipline has built a foundation that can support whatever level of success comes their way. The person who lacks this foundation will struggle even with the best opportunities. This is the secret that successful people rarely talk about because it's not glamorous. It's not exciting. It doesn't make for good social media content. But it's the foundation of everything worthwhile. Private discipline doesn't just change what you do, it changes who you are. And who you are determines everything else. The ripple effect of private discipline extends far beyond your own life. When you become someone who can be trusted, who follows through, who maintains standards regardless of who's watching, you give others permission to do the same. Your children learn that integrity isn't just something you talk about, it's something you live. Your colleagues learn that excellence isn't just a goal, it's a way of being. Your friends learn that they can count on you not just in crisis, but in the everyday moments that make up a life. You become a source of stability in an unstable world. You become someone others can lean on because you've learned to support yourself. You become a leader not because you seek to lead, but because you've become someone worth following. This kind of influence can't be manufactured or faked. It can only be earned through the quiet accumulation of right choices made when no one is keeping score. The life you're living right now is the result of the choices you've made when nobody was watching. If you want a different life, you need to start making different choices in those private moments. The good news is that it's never too late to start. Every moment is a new opportunity to choose discipline over convenience, character over comfort, growth over stagnation. Now here's what I want you to understand. The person you are in private is not separate from the person you are in public. They're the same person. The only difference is that in private there's no external pressure to be anyone other than who you really are. So if you want to know who you really are, pay attention to what you do when no one is watching. And if you don't like what you see, remember that you have the power to change it. The change starts with a decision. Not a decision about what you're going to achieve or what you're going to have, but a decision about who you're going to be. Are you going to be someone who can be trusted? Are you going to be someone who follows through? Or are you going to be someone who maintains their standards regardless of the circumstances? These decisions aren't made once and then forgotten. They're made every day, every hour, sometimes every minute. They're made when you're tired and when you're energized. They're made when you're happy and when you're discouraged. They're made when things are going well and when everything seems to be falling apart. I challenge you to spend the next 30 days paying attention to your private choices. Notice when you're tempted to take the easy way out. Notice when you have the opportunity to do something good that no one will know about. Notice the difference between who you are in public and who you are in private. Don't judge yourself harshly, just notice. Then, starting tomorrow, make one small change. Choose one area where you can be more disciplined when no one is watching. Maybe it's making your bed every morning. Maybe it's turning off the television 30 minutes earlier each night. Maybe it's saying something kind about someone instead of something critical. Whatever it is, do it consistently for 30 days and see what happens. Remember, the goal isn't perfection. The goal is progress. The goal is to become someone who can be trusted, starting with trusting yourself. The goal is to build a life you don't need to escape from. A life you're proud to live, whether anyone notices or not. The person you become when no one is watching is the person you truly are. Make sure it's someone you respect, someone you like, someone you're proud to be. Because at the end of the day, you're the one who has to live with the choices you make. You're the one who has to look in the mirror. You're the one who has to sleep with your conscience. Choose to be disciplined when no one is watching. And watch how quickly everything else in your life begins to change. The private victory always precedes the public victory. The character you build in secret becomes the foundation for the success you experience in public. And the best part is, once you develop this habit, once you become this person, no one can ever take it away from you. That's the power of learning to be disciplined when no one is watching. It's not just about what you do, it's about who you become. And who you become determines everything else.